hilarious. We're all vibing. How's it going?
Good.
I'm good. Other than the snow, I'm fine.
Yes,
but I know you deal with this all the time.
Yes, Milwaukee, Wisconsin, we're known for it, but definitely before we get started, our prayers are with the states and those who have been affected by the storm and the outages and the loss. So before we even get started, our prayers go out to you. We're acknowledging today. And thank you so much for checking in with your family to let you know you're okay. And I'm just grateful that a lot of my family members have checked in and they're okay, but still without water. So still work to be done. So such a sad moment, but we are here to talk about marriage. And I don't know how I transitioned from that to talk about marriage, but there you go. There you go.
So you did a good job.
I did a good job. Okay.
Because life still happens when you going through. And trust me, people's marriage has been tested in the midst of COVID and no water and electricity.
Listen, that part, right? And I just can't even imagine like what they're going through. But it shouldn't have happened. And that's a whole nother conversation. But definitely, again, our prayers are with you all. And not only our prayers, our support. So those of you who know, reach out in your community. They have a number of links to let you know how you can support in sending money for water and what have you. So just wanted to put that out there on behalf of the truth and nothing but the truth. So we are back. We're back. We're back for part 2 of the Marriage Architects Built to Last. And so I just want you to, first of all, to say happy Saturday to everyone. Thank you for joining us again for another episode of The Truth and Nothing But the Truth with my wonderful co-host. And before we get started, do us a favor, share the video with someone you know will need to have this conversation, whether they're contemplating marriage, engaged, newlywed, or their seasoned marriages. These are conversations that are beneficial for all. We want you to make sure that you click the notification button so you know when we come on. And if you're on YouTube, push subscribe. So if some of you are catching us on replay, please make sure that you engage with us because we do go back in the comments and communicate with you. So give StreamYard permission to post your remarks, and we're going to get started. So last time, now it seemed like forever, but we actually did something last week for Valentine's Day, like a special, this is a special love for the lover in you, where we had the wonderful Tobias come on and do his love poems for the single and married, which were fire. Can I say fire? So we'll talk about that, and the wonderful work that's coming up with your book, and talk about that at the end. But let's get into this conversation. So the other week we talked about part 1 of the Marriage Architects, and we were talking about how to pour a strong foundation and this whole idea of building a house, that we just didn't want to have a house, but we want to build a home that's filled with love and commitment and trust. And so we talked about building pouring a strong foundation, having a blueprint, setting up the infrastructure, and even talked about secrets versus privacy. So we got a little dicey in that conversation. So let's jump into this week. We're going to be talking about part 2, communicating with awareness. So now we're getting into like the part of you that in developing like the cables, the infrastructure, how do we keep that strong? And then if you find yourself in a situation where you are in a trouble space, how do you do the work to get out of it? Does that sound about right, you all? All right, so let's get started. I want to first of all say I'm Dr. Katina Fuller-Scott, founder of Be What Matters. I'm a personal and professional development owner through Be What Matters, and we are really about developing leaders to be solutions in the communities where we live, learn, and lead. And so I'm excited to be here with my co-hosts, Lisa and Ittrick, and I'm gonna let Lisa introduce herself and then Ittrick.
Hello, everybody. I'm Lisa Daniels, and I'm executive leadership coach and founder of Lionheart Society. where we have crucial conversations of integrating career, parenthood, and marriage, because sometimes it can just be a lot. But we want to always see our couples win in life. So thoroughly engaged with the clients and the team. The Truth and Nothing But the Team is just another extension of what I believe my purpose is in life, which is to keep people married and families together. And Mr. Tobias, the other 1/3 of our team.
Hello, everyone. I am 𝗕𝗂𝗶𝗵𝗶𝗴𝗲, poet and author and social worker. Hopefully my book will be out in the spring. Life Unscripted will be out this spring. Hopefully you all enjoyed the 2 pieces I did on last week. I guess we'll go ahead and get into the show.
Hey, listen, if you did not catch last week's episode, you need to get it because the poems were fire and the conversation was fire. So definitely get into that. So Tobias,
just a few little tidbits about who we were.
Yes. Go ahead, Tobias.
So I was having this conversation prior to us coming on about happiness with my brother. And so we were talking about how people usually ask, hey, are you happy? And this is in reference to another gender. Like if I'm the male, then the female gender would ask, are you happy? And if you're the female, if you're the male, then if you're the female, then the guy would ask. So, and what's usually stated in that conversation is, hey, are you happy? But what's not stated is, or implied, is that I can make you happy, which is highly unrealistic for someone to say, okay, hey, I can make you happy. Because the truth is, which is truth and nothing but the truth, is if I can make you happy, I can also make you sad. So it goes both ways. And the other thing about that is, if you can make me happy, how long can you do it? Because it's not it's a time capsule to it. Because if I'm doing this for you, what exactly are you doing for me? Okay, I'll stop there. Okay, that's enough. That's enough.
Like you started off like boom. So, I was trying to see who was online. I see Anita Edwards is watching us and Sanitha Wallace is watching us. Hello. Please give StreamYard permission to let us see your comments. But I want to post that question up here for a moment and let us talk about it. When someone asks you, are you happy? What's implied in that statement? Lisa, what are your thoughts?
I mean, that's a lot. Because happiness, right, or I've come to understand by my birthday, which was last week, because age kind of smooths you out, right? Thank you. Age kind of smooths you out. You realize that can't no one ultimately make you happy forever and ever and ever and ever. And I honestly think I got the best husband ever made. And he done great things. And there's just some days I just wake up and I'm like, not feeling you. Nope.
Not feeling you?
Nope. But then the end of the day, it's fine. So, I mean, happiness also is a choice. You if you're unhappy, then you can decide to be happy.
Absolutely. And I think a lot of times when people are, first of all, anyone who's asking you, are you happy? They're fishing and they're being messy. Yes. Absolutely.
Definitely. Yes.
But when you think about the whole concept of happiness, I think we put a lot of emphasis on external. It's external satisfaction that comes through situations, and instead we're not necessarily looking for internal fulfillment. So what is it that fulfills us? And that fulfillment can change. But the emphasis definitely should be internally on what fulfills you. And I like what you said, Lisa, about your husband, that he said, listen, I'm just here to add to your happiness. Like, I'm not the end all be all. And takes me to a conversation, and I don't know if my daughter's listening. I think she tried. But we were having a conversation before this conversation about you need to make sure that when you are in this relationship, right, that you are building a life, because she's young, but it applies to older people as well. Build a life that's not centered around an individual. It's too much pressure for any one person to be your end all be all.
Mm-hmm.
It gets old after a while. After a while, they're not happy.
Right.
Okay. All right.
And so this last little thing before we transition, if we look at the context of marriage,
yeah,
it was the context of marriage was designed to be holy, not happy.
Oh, talk about that.
So, you explain.
Talk about that. Talk about that.
And we just 13 minutes in? Wow. So the happiness is a byproduct of your holiness. So the whole concept was for when this all came about was for us to be in a holy relationship. It wasn't about being in a happy relationship. The happiness is a byproduct. I use the example all the time. It's about the sound system in a car. The car, you like the car, but the sound system is just a byproduct of the car. You don't go and just say, hey, I just want to buy the sound system. The car, the sound system comes with it. And
right.
So happiness comes with you being in a holy relationship.
Or about being a whole person.
Yeah.
Start with that.
A whole relationship. Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely. Good stuff. So this was just the precursor conversation to the conversation for today. This is what happens with us. We have conversations before we come on here. And that one was really good. And I want to know in the chat, for those who are joining us, should we seek happiness or fulfillment? Tell us what you think in the chat. We want to hear from you. Should we seek happiness or fulfillment? All right, so let's get into the conversation about marriage architects built to last, part 2. And we started out with understanding that now we are in the house, we've poured the foundation, and we're starting to put the walls together and all the piping and all the infrastructure that's going into this house, into this home rather. And we said that we have to communicate with awareness. Ooh, that's deep. Communicate with awareness. And I want to talk about, this point that life has a way of bringing up old baggage and traumas. And so you have to make sure that you are aware of that. And so, Tobias, what are your thoughts on that?
Absolutely correct. Because we don't take time to heal and get over things. And so because life doesn't often give you that grace period to stop. So because life is so fluid. And so once we just have to a lot of times play hurt and continue to go forward in relationships. And then next thing you know, I'm a husband, a wife, we have kids, and I never took the time to deal with some of those things that affected me in my childhood, or some of those traumas. And a lot of times our first inclination of relationship is from our parents and how they communicated toward each other. And we don't realize how much that affected us until after we are adults. Sometimes we realize at the moment, but we don't realize how much it impacts us until after we're in our adulthood.
Well, and I want to go back to this. Mary Harrell said, if you're happy, fulfillment will come as a natural byproduct. Absolutely. Absolutely. I just wanted to acknowledge that before we go on. Tobias, you said something that is so profound, because I think about in my marriage, right? When I think about my childhood, my mother and father's communication style was very different, in that my mother, she was definitely, and my father, bless his heart, he's deceased. She's a very assertive woman, and I find myself in that stead too. I'm very assertive, very in your face when it comes to communication, because I like to deal with the issues. I don't like it sleeping. I don't deal with the passive aggressive tones. Let's get to to the root of the matter, right? And I
Okay.
found myself learning that style because my father, although he could be, he could give her word for word, he, for the most part, was not in that space with my mom. So my mom was assertive. I brought that over into my marriage because that's what I knew. And I'm very much, let's deal with it, let's communicate. And my husband is not that type of person. He is a person that likes to process. He does not like drama. So any appearance of drama, any appearance of it, it automatically is a shutdown. And so I had to really learn my communication style and how to switch it on and switch it off so that it's not offending him. And so while we have this conversation, let's bring up this comment, this question rather, about communication. What has your childhood taught you? How has your childhood taught you to communicate? So those who are with us live, put in the chat, how has your childhood taught you to communicate? What do you have to say, Lisa?
I think you're spot on. I mean, your parents, or for some of us, lack thereof, you learn to communicate, or that's your initial kind of experience with communication. And so I would definitely say I'm a little bit of both. My father, on the other hand, is very assertive and aggressive in his communication style. And it doesn't help that he's 6'5", about 300 pounds. So, that brought its own kind of essence and persona to that, as opposed to, I can be that way in a lot of situations, but when it comes to my marriage, I'm not arguing with a grown person. I'm just not going to do it. So I tend to do my own thing, and be like, well, when you get yourself together, we can talk about it, because I'm not going to communicate under that circumstance. And so in growing with my husband, I had to say to him, I hear you. I know you want to talk about it now, but I need time to process it. So communicating with him what I needed, and I will come back to you depending on the heaviness of the topic. I'll come back to you in 24 hours, 48 hours, and set a time. So then he knows I'm not ignoring him, but then it gives me time to process. So I think it's okay that people communicate differently. It's just being honest, being aware, as we say, being aware, have the awareness, and then communicate, so then both people can get what they need. And then the couple's not frustrated. But you first have to understand what communication style you have. And part of the answer is how you developed it over your childhood.
Absolutely. I think that if you can get nothing from the conversation today, is learn how to, first of all, what your communication style is. And most people, we don't know what that is. We just know what we know. And then how does that affect someone else? And so the second question, for those who are joining us, how has your childhood taught you to communicate, is one question. And the other question is, how does your mate respond to your communication style? Tobias, how does your mate respond to your communication style?
So my dad and mom been married, I think 51 or 52 years now.
Nice.
And so my dad is a very warm guy. And he's developed this thing of ignoring my mom. So if she asks him something and he doesn't want to answer it, then he would ignore it until he felt like he wanted to answer it, or he would just shut down. And so that was the first model that I saw. So of course it used to frustrate my mom, but again, this is the model that I saw. And so I, by default, implemented that into my relationship. So I have no problem with ignoring you or saying, okay, I'll answer this when I get ready. But it was based on what I had seen. Is that correct? No. I am not advocating that you do that under any
Not if you want to stay
circumstance.
married.
Okay.
No. And so, and what I had to understand is that even though I had seen that behavior exhibited, it was not a correct behavior, one. And two, that just because I saw it, my wife is not my mom. So she doesn't process the same way that my mom saw things and respond in the same way. So I had to talk to her, hey, this is what's going on. And I need a little time, as Lisa stated, I need a little time to process this for me to respond to what you asked me or whatever happened. I need a little time so I'm not being, I'm not just not responding. I just need a little time for me to formulate my thoughts and give you what I'm really feeling as opposed to just saying, okay, and just ignore you.
But you know what? That could be so frustrating. That's so frustrating for someone who wants to deal with the issue. It is so frustrating.
Yes, but the other person wants to stay married. And if you push my buttons, then it's going to be a very reactive type of thing. And then you're going to be mad and we ain't going to talk anyway. So
Right. Because you know what happens? When you push a person to communicate when they're not ready, you get this avalanche of all the stuff that's not pertaining to this conversation at all because you kept pushing. Okay.
And then I asked, how long you been holding on to that? It sounded like you were just waiting on the opportunity.
You were waiting. Like, you know, like when people get drunk, that courage liquor. That's what they wait for that high point in an argument when I pushed you to communicate when you didn't want to communicate, and all of your truth comes out, and I'm like, dang.
Is that how you feel?
See, well, on the other side, we like, no, I can't say that. What? No, I can't say that either.
But this is so important when we're talking about making sure the foundation is strong, because you know when you're in a relationship, houses can last 100 years, and the foundation can still be strong, but there's some shifting, there's some settling in, and so having awareness in our communication definitely allows us to have strong houses and homes where we can have strong relationships. And so any other thoughts concerning that? I know we talked about even childhood trauma, being mindful of the childhood trauma, you know, and even our friendships when we're communicating. I don't remember how we brought that up, but anybody have any thought on that?
We often talk about, you know, when we're younger, we've heard the phrase "sticks and stones may break our bones, but words would never hurt me." Yeah, sounds good, cliche, but it's not the truth. Words do hurt, and so some words, depending on when you heard it and from who you heard it, that changes the rest of your life. And so you have to be mindful of what you say, because when you say it, I can never get that moment back. I can't get those words back. And so, as Lisa stated earlier, is arguing with a grown person. I don't like to argue, because if I get to the point of arguing, then my instinct is to, for lack of a better word, to destroy. And I don't want to destroy someone I love. And so, and once I get to that point, then you have to say, okay, I got to back away from this, because this isn't going to be productive. The further I go down this road, this is not going to end well. And that's called maturity. Hey, I know my triggers, that it's okay to walk away and live to see another day.
Walk away and live to see another day. You better come on and preach, sir. That I tell you, it's that.
Is there one?
You know what I thought about though? You know, there's something to be said about Angie. Hey, Angie. Angie and Laquan, you're watching with us today. She said that was good. Good, Tobias. I want to say, isn't there something to be said though about having some heated arguments and great make-up sex? Okay, I just wanted to say that.
How about just have the sex and don't argue? How about that?
Well, it's not as intense. Okay, I'm sorry. I that's another episode. Another episode.
I'm with it though. I'm with it.
He like either way. Just
right. Either way.
It's nothing like asking, what was I mad about? What was I mad
She said no. Listen, we're all grown. Yes. So yes, but being mindful. For those who are just joining us, we had a question up here, and we're going to move on. But we'd love to see your comments about, how has your childhood taught you to communicate? Is the one question. How has your childhood taught you to communicate? And then the second question was, how does your mate respond to your communication style? So if you can put something in there, Angie, let us hear what you have to say about that. And we're going to move on a bit. When we're talking about communication, one point we brought up was that if gone unchecked, like if your childhood trauma is gone unchecked, your communication style, the triggers and not being mindful of those triggers goes unchecked, the jackhammering starts. And for anyone who's familiar with a foundation, is a point in time where there might be some structural damage to the foundation, and you can't necessarily, well, you can go in and tear up the whole foundation, but that's not wise, right? But there are areas that you have to jackhammer, and you have to make sure that you are skilled in the jackhammering so that you're not destroying the whole foundation. So let's talk about that in terms of marriage. Jackhammering can become a destructive behavior, coping, protective mechanism is what we said. Let's talk about that for a minute. How can jackhammering become a destructive behavior, coping mechanism, or protective mechanism?
I think that requires an academic answer, counselor.
well, to go back to our root, is by nature we're selfish creatures, and so if we're jackhammering to be destructive, then we're doing it with the intent of being selfish, and it's all about me. And all roads in a marriage or in any relationship, whether it's girlfriend or boyfriend, they can't always lead back to you. It has to, at some point, you have to consider and be giving to the other person. And so when we have those jackhammering moments, we can never fix what we're not willing to confront. So when
wait, hold up. Tobias, you can't drop stuff like that and just go on like it wasn't a mic drop.
That Jim and that Jewel.
Yes, you can't say that again. Say that again, please, for the people in the back.
That we can't, in those moments when we have those jackhammering times, you can never fix what you're not willing to confront. And so that means you have to have courage to go to the other person and address what's going on. Doesn't mean it's going to be fixed right then, but at least you have the courage to say, okay, what's going on? Something is wrong here, and we need to address this. Or we need to address this individually, you need some help, or we need to get some help. Because if we continue this is not going to end well. Right.
What are your thoughts, Lisa?
And actually recall a conversation we had when we first started about this growing apart. Like those little foxes that go unaddressed. And then all of a sudden you looking at him and he looking at you like, who are you? Because you guys didn't confront the issues you were having, and then it festered in ways that are unimaginable. And you was like, I didn't even know you was upset about that, and not letting people process. And it's like they bring up stuff that happened 5 years ago. You thought, I was like, what's going on? So I definitely was a jackhammer when I first got married. And over time, I just had to realize, like, I definitely was one of those people that did not get when you get married, you become one. I'm like, no, we two people in one marriage.
You didn't read that. You weren't listening to that.
I listened, and it just didn't. No, I was like, no, that's not correct. And I still think that's somewhat true, which it's a little bit off script, but I think you have to grow into that, right?
Yeah.
And until you're tested in ways that cause you to depend on one another, you are two people in a marriage, in under one marriage. It's up to you to decide to become one. But anyway,
oh my gosh, yeah,
that's for another day.
Listen, marriage has a way of
grabbing you all together,
shaping you up. Absolutely.
So yeah, jackhammering is definitely a form of coping and protecting. But if you're doing that in your marriage, one or two things, in my unacademic opinion, you either married the wrong person or you need to get yourself together. Because you're not supposed to want to jackhammer the person you married.
Right.
Yeah.
So
especially if you're using, and it goes back to the skill, right? When you're using a jackhammer, it can be a protective mechanism, right, in that it causes, just like those cracks that in a window, if left untreated, it will cause this huge shattering. Same thing with foundation. So if you're skilled with your communication, if you're skilled with your intent, see, it's about intent.
Come on, sister. Come on, sister.
Oh, I'm preaching.
Oh,
it's about intent. We can jackhammer some stuff and talk about folks' mamas and how their mama wasn't nothing and their daddy wasn't nothing and lead to some stuff that's irreparable. Like, you cannot come back from it because we weren't skilled with our jackhammering, right? We didn't use the tool. And so, we were talking about reconciliation cannot occur when your communication is jacked up.
Okay.
And the other thing about, and the one thing about the communication is honesty.
Mm-hmm.
But the thing that we often leave out about honesty is the atmosphere has to be safe. If I don't feel safe, or the atmosphere is not manufactured in a manner that I deem is safe, I would never share.
Yeah.
So I would never get to that communication part that we're speaking about because I never felt safe. So I have to feel safe enough to share, which means it's free of judgment.
Mm-hmm. 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 Ooh, that's hard though. That's hard. And you know what? You said something strong there, because even now and this is not necessarily related to this, but it goes to say the need for psychological safety. Even when talking to people who are talking about diversity, equity, inclusion, and all of these tough subjects that require courageous conversations, the number one thing that people are talking about is saying, I don't feel psychologically safe to have this conversation with you. And if I don't feel safe in how I think you're going to receive it, if I'm feeling judged, it will never happen.
And what actually you're saying, but not as explicitly, is people take for granted that happens after you get married.
Yes.
That's something you have to continue to build.
Right.
You looking cute and you having certain accolades and accoutrements is what got me to marry you. Now that I'm married to you, the real work begins.
Correct.
No, sorry. The real work begins. Absolutely true. Like, they've been dropping gems all this time, and like, come on with the trio. Come on here, truth and nothing but the rope. We were also talking about that, going back to the reconciliation process, that if you have to, and it goes to my scripture that I kept telling you right now.
I wrote it down.
John 8:30. You shall know the truth. Yeah.
And wow.
Shall make you free. And
amen.
Thank you. I just wanted an amen right there. Amen. If you don't confront the truth and walk in the truth of the truth, reconciliation can't happen. And so many times we don't want to walk in the truth. We want to stay in that space of victimization. And I want Lisa to talk about this right here.
Let me pull up the word while you go ahead.
And the word says, but understanding that we have to understand the role we played in the problem to lead to resolution. See, a lot of us we're caught up on I'm hurt, you hurt me, and we separate ourselves from all the stuff I said and how I contributed to that issue. So Lisa, come on.
So tying that all in, I'll say for me, a lot of how I had to process and move through life, a lot of it I learned through reading. If I need to know something and I don't know somebody, know a source, I started looking for books. So I am reading a book. It's called God Doesn't Blink. And quickly, it's just like little short stories about this woman who her life lessons she learned through her cancer journey. And the chapter is called Forgiving Everyone for Everything. And so she talks about people viewing themselves as victims. And so a passage I sent to the team, because I was like, oh, this reflects what we're talking about, right? So it says, too often we tell the injury story. That's me. We get attention and sympathy by becoming the victim or being right or being wrong. We seek cheap payoffs that keep us stuck. And if we were invested in someone being our villain, we must love being the victim. We have to let both characters in the story.
Ooh, wait. Say that last line.
We have to let go of both characters in the story. And that's tough.
Ooh.
I done lived that one, and that's tough.
Yeah, that's a hard space, because you think about it, there is truth in the fact that you hurt me and I hurt you. So you can't hurt someone and expect them to get over it and then and then try to control how they get over it, right? But that only happens when it's us. So if I'm hurting someone, I want you to quickly get over it. But when I'm hurt, I want to hold on to it and let it simmer, because I'm going to use it to my advantage later on. Okay.
See, I don't even go that deep. I just stop fooling with you.
You can't always stop dealing with everybody.
You just cut people off.
Because in the past, to me, in my mind, that kind of stopped the hurt. But it really didn't, right? Because that's why people have triggers.
Yeah.
Because they didn't deal with it. And so even in that scenario, I'm still playing victim. You know, it's like, oh, well, you hurt me, so I'm just not going to deal with you anymore. And I still think there are those people who you love them from a distance. However, trying to understand that people just don't get it right. And it's a hard pill to swallow that people don't get it right. They didn't know any better. They deal with their own childhood trauma. That's why they treated you that way. And it's really not about you. It's about them in the midst of their own personal storm. All that wrapped up into one is just like, and people bring that to their marriage. And so it's a lot of people playing victims and slapping husband and wife on
it. You're just gonna say that right there. Okay. All right. What were your thoughts?
And she's exactly right. And so what usually happens, we're never taught before we enter a relationship about the other person's baggage. And so the reality is, at some point during the marriage, you all are going to have to work on the other's baggage. And that's not something that we are ever taught. And it's not something that we're even equipped for, but it's just a part of marriage on your way to forever. It's so those things that, hey, I didn't deal with this when I was 12 or 13. And so I thought it was done. It manifested itself in the marriage. So here we are. So guess what? Now we have to deal with it together. And usually if that's not, and then we may have to involve, the pastor or another counselor to say, okay, how can we unpack this? Because I'm just there. This could have happened to anyone, but I'm here now.
Okay, come on in, Lorna. Come on in, Lorna. Yes, sister. Yes.
And this one more thing I wanted to say. I know this is probably going to take you right on into church. The scripture says at some point, again, the forgiveness part I got to press toward the higher calling. So I got to press toward what's new. I can't always revert back to what I used to do, because if I continue to revert back to what I used to do, guess what I'm going to have? I'm going to have the same relationship. So at some point I got to say, okay, I got to take acknowledgement for what I did in the relationship. I got to own it. That's called accountability. Yeah. That's called maturity. Hey, what part did I play in this? As Lisa stated, I can't always be the victim. I can't always be the hero either. I'm somewhere in between.
I can't always be the hero.
Okay. All right.
This is not even
doing
planned.
Too much, ain't he?
This is not even planned. I can't be the hero. Well, come on here. I was thinking about, we said you must participate in your own rescue rather than using your victimhood to manipulate your mates.
I'm coming to the altar on this one. I'm coming to the altar.
Take me through the wild.
That was my most single eye-opening experience of my coaching journey, because I went into that program taking literally every piece of baggage that I had been carrying and just laid it down. And it was triggered by a life-altering event. And I just realized how much I was carrying and how heavy it was.
Yeah.
And in order for me to move through that tragedy onto the other side, I had to realize no one was coming to rescue me. There would be people to help me if I wanted it, but for me to move from this tragedy to triumph, I had to take the first step. And it's a long process. So it's not like it's gonna happen in a day, or even a month. And even honestly, it's been a year since I graduated. I'm still processing a lot of the lessons that I learned through my coaching journey. And they say coaching is not therapy. Okay, that's debatable, but at minimum, it's therapeutic, because I did a whole bunch of ugly cries in front of 31 people that I did not know at that time. And I love cohort 59 dearly because they are my refuge. Yeah. And in many ways saved my life, saved me from going off the rails. So at some point you're going to deal with that. And some of the stuff I was dealing with, it happened at 9, 10 years old.
Yeah. Because you think about it, a lot of times what we're dealing with in our grown adult lives and our relationships are the traumas, the issues, the fears, whatever we dealt with when we were, or didn't deal with when we were younger. And right now, we're just seeing the results of a root cause. Mm-hmm. And we don't want to take, and because it takes work and I think Lorna said grace under difficulty, it takes work. And most people don't want to put in the work of a relationship.
Nobody does.
Listen,
it's a decision.
Don't take my line. It's a decision. a daily decision to put the work in.
Sometimes an hourly one.
Girl, now we gonna have to have some other conversations. I got to hourly decide work in now.
Okay. Well, you ain't walked in my shoes, honey, because I'm telling you, sometimes you just come home because that's where your shoes is at.
Yeah. Okay. And Lorna, I love that no one really knows how much, that is so true, how much baggage they have until they get with the right person who can see the pain and be willing to help them through it. Oh, you need to be up here with us, Lorna. What you
know? That's your sister.
Where's the collection plate?
Right. We gonna pass this to Lorna.
Very good, very good. Because we can, and because it's a daily decision. Why? Because we are human and we will get triggered. It's inevitable. We are going to get triggered by someone, especially those who are closest to us, who know our hurt, who know our secrets, who know where the bones are buried.
Yeah, so true. But the key to that again is the safety. The safety is the key to all that. Allowing you to see, I heard the song, allowing you to see me naked. Because now you're seeing who I really am.
Was that after the makeup sex?
After the intense fight, the makeup sex. If you weren't here for that earlier conversation, catch the replay.
I'm sorry.
We wanted to. We find that often, and we will be getting there and doing some training classes. We've really been laying this foundation for almost 3 months. November, December, January. Yeah, almost 4 or 5 months now to kind of let you know what we're about. And then we'll be bringing this to training. But we wanted to definitely say that we want to give you some tools, at least one tool that you can use today in talking about communication and being skillful with communication. Tobias is going to go over one technique that you can use in now to help out in your relationship when it comes to communication. So Tobias, tell us a little bit about that.
And that technique is called the speaker listener technique. You can role play this. I don't like role play when it comes to this, because that's a controlled environment, and life doesn't present a controlled environment. So that's one of the reasons I don't really like role play. But anyway, the speaker listener technique has rules for the speaker, and that is speak for yourself, don't mind read. Which means say what you're trying to say. I can't guess what you're saying. You can actually say it. Don't try to guess. And then keep your statements.
You want me to use my words? Like I tell my 10-year-old, he's mumbling. I was like, "What are you saying? Use your words."
Yeah,
so
use your words.
What was that first one? We'll put that in the comments for individuals. What was the first one, Tobias?
Speak for yourself. Don't mind read.
Okay.
And then
what does that look like though? When because people talking third person, so it's more so I statements.
Correct. I was going to say no third person. So it's usually
Lisa's upset. Mm-hmm.
I can't.
Then you say, is somebody else in here? Who else in here?
Nobody but us, Blue. Ain't nobody in us.
That's the problem. You thinking that's the problem.
Go ahead, guys. We'll go down that rabbit hole.
And once you get done with that, then the speaker, the last point is to stop and let the listener paraphrase. So at that point, the listener would say, okay, what I heard you say. So as you stated, Lisa is hurt. so you can say, but don't say that. Just say, okay, I'm hurt. And then you go on to say why you were hurt. And then my response is, what I heard you say.
Angela put me on blast. Stop it, Lisa. Well, you missed this back conversation. When we was prepping, I said I didn't like this technique. It worked, but I didn't like it, so that's why I'm being funny.
Because people use it for everything. But what I heard you say was,
Yes.
you know what I said.
You're right. You know what I said.
This is when you shouldn't be doing this technique, right? So let's just have this conversation by saying, listen, the technique works, but sometimes because we are so close to it, the situation, you need to get someone neutral to help facilitate the conversation. And that's real talk. Because I could just imagine if we're in the heat of the battle and talking about something, I heard you say, my nonverbal will tell you what I heard you say.
Well, and honestly, so I did use this technique because we learned this technique. My husband and I, we were engaged, and it, like Lorna said, it worked. So actually, what my husband and I would do, we would meet on Fridays. So on Fridays, this was the time we make dinner, and we would have like conversations about how our life was we wanted it to look once we got married, and we did use this technique. So in mimicking something that Tobias said, setting the environment for which the person can be vulnerable and be truthful and honest. So ours was Friday. We would make dinner. And we would, I'd have little exercise, or we'd take the exercise of the lady we were working with, and we would this was one of the exercises that we did. So I digress in it does work. I've used it. Not my favorite, but it works.
And it's what it is go ahead, Tobias. I'm sorry.
No, go ahead.
I was just gonna say it's one tool that you can use that is a right now tool, because it is just stepping back to create a space and an environment where you're not heated, but say, babe, let's try this as a form of communication style. But I think it is good to put out there that so many of us attempt this process of reconciliation, and we know we're too close to it, and we need to get help.
Yeah.
It's just like the whole conversations about mental, wellness. It's the same thing in marriage wellness. You need to get help in facilitating these struggled areas where it's a lot of jackhammering that's needed. And if you don't want to tear up something, you need to get somebody like a Tobias to help you not go crazy. Go ahead, Tobias.
And the key, the main key to this technique working is consistency. Of course, it's gonna seem like you're being a robot at first, like what I heard you say, until it becomes your own thing. And then once it becomes your own thing, then you will see that it's working. But the key to making sure that it works is consistency. As with anything, consistency builds trust. So if there was any trust that was broken, be consistent. And if you are consistent enough, the trust will return. That's just a free nugget I gave out.
That's
and so the other part of the listener is to focus on what the speaker is saying and don't rebuke. And so rebut. And so what we often say.
Say that last part you said. So the third part is what?
Focus on what the speaker's message is and don't rebut.
Okay.
And so when oftentimes when we get correct.
Don't
when
rebut.
When we're in a conversation, and the first thing we're doing is already formulating what we're going to say next. I heard what you said. My thing is I got to respond. So at that point, I've stopped listening to whatever you said because I got to get my point out. Right. And that's not productive.
And a lot of times you don't even know, because you don't know what they said, you responding off the wall because you like, oh, that ain't what we're talking about, because you were not fully present in the conversation. I'm telling on myself,
looking crazy because you responded to the wrong thing.
Yes. And the last thing is, okay, when one is speaking, then the other is, both of you all can't speak at the same time. So one is speaking and then one is listening, and then you all share the floor. But somebody we both can't speak at the same time, because that means probably we're not listening.
So the other thing, the counselor that we were using had, I don't remember what it was. I don't know if she gave us something or we just designated something, but whatever it was, the person who had this inanimate object, that was the person who spoke. Mm-hmm. So it was just a reminder that who had the floor, so you wouldn't up and forget. Because I remember it was me and my husband. We'd be like, I have it. You know, you don't have it. Be quiet.
And that's a whole rewiring.
It is
being open to change the way you communicate when you've lived with this style for most of your life, right?
Correct.
So, okay, I love this, Lorna. Lorna said, when things go wrong, you should have grace stored up. That should remind you of their track record to get through the tough times. Absolutely.
I'm gonna be real shady right now. That's a newlywed answer, because there ain't no grace stored up. When you pissed off,
girl, that part.
It's the fact that 14 years ago I promised to love you till death do us part. It's been vows that see you through. It ain't no grace.
I'll say this. This is not my thought. This is the Dr. Reverend Gina Marcia Stewart, my pastor, CMBC family. She said something that
I know, right?
Yeah. That's a shameless plug. Shameless plug.
We want y'all to come to church on Sunday tomorrow in the area.
So, Pastor Stewart said something. She said, "You got to have relationship equity." And I said, "What is relationship equity?" She said, "Is this the first time that this has happened?" I said, "No." She said, "So if my track record is good, then I should have equity stored up that shows that this is a first time offense."
You tell your
I said the same thing.
Cash app. But what do you do? Not to cut you off, but what do you do? Even though they have the relationship equity, maybe it's not your first offense.
Exactly.
Okay.
Exactly.
It sounds like I need to open the altar. That's what it sounds like.
What you say?
It sounds like I need to open the altar.
I'm sorry, I can't agree with the good Reverend, because listen.
Grace, Lisa, Grace.
If that's a person's thing, they gonna keep doing it. Your vow, I say love gets you there, toleration keeps you there. Because I've been with my husband almost 17 years, and there's some things that he do and keep doing, and they aggravate me every time, but I ain't gonna divorce him. You just keep it moving. You decide what it is you can take and you can't take.
Listen, I've been in situations where I had to have the conversation to say, look, this is what we said in our vows. We said we're going to have each other's back, and divorce is not an option. So
it is an option.
No, it ain't an option for us. I haven't been married twice. This is my sister. I didn't know option, buddy.
He said, I ain't gonna go this way again.
Never.
Well, you better than me. I ain't going that way a second time. This is
we said that early on. I got your back, and divorce is not an option. So whatever you got to do to get through the messed up place you in, do that. Do that.
And the one thing I will say with that is sometimes when we're having that period of grace is the comforting fact that knowing someone has my back through it all.
Absolutely.
Because, and I know this is probably a segue to a whole nother relationship, but our love that we're introduced to is a conditional love.
Okay.
We have to learn unconditional love through a marriage. That's it for the show. We'll start on that another
You mean you can't? I can't marry you and you complete me?
Oh no! Oh no! You're not my re-up. That sounds good. No. It's good for a show. Good for a show. No.
Okay, so I can't go any further with y'all today. I can't go. So first of all, thank you all. I can't believe that we're coming to the end of this session. It's been so good. Thank you so much for joining us. Thank you so much for engaging in the conversation. And I love that we're able to just keep it real. You know what? It's our truth. It's our truth, and that's our story, and we're sticking to it. And so we want to invite you back in March. I believe March 6th. March 6th? In March.
Yes.
Look, that's the face goes.
All right.
Yeah, I was trying to look at the calendar.
We're going to be diving into the book, The 5 Love Languages by Gary Chapman. And Angie says, see, I need glasses. Smart people wear glasses. Absolutely.
Blind people do too.
Right. So our next question is going to be on what happens to love. Can I get through this point, please? I cannot. What happens to love after the wedding? What happens to love after the wedding? And so for those of you who don't have the book, we're not expecting you to read the whole book by March 6th, and we're not getting any proceeds on talking about the book, but it is a book that really deals with what some people have talked about, your love language. So we want to dive into a couple of chapters in here through the month of March. We're asking you if you can look it up online, do so. It's a wonderful book just to have conversation with your mate about. It'll help you see some similarities in how you communicate with your mate. My husband and I have gone through the book, and it's been a great help. And so it's time for a refresher course. So I'll put it in. We right here, Lisa. We right here. I'll put it in, especially during COVID.
Is there one?
I'm ready for
that's one thing we haven't even touched on. How people doing in a marriage is doing in the midst of COVID. So let's tie that in our next conversation. Not necessarily what happened to after the marriage, what happened to love during COVID. Okay. So in an environment of virtual learning. Okay. When you're trying to keep it hot and steamy. It's just boiling. Ain't no steam over here. I cannot. So I'm going to put the name of the book in the chat. Those who want to join in and see us in March. While I'm doing that, you all give some final words other than being messy. Go ahead. Give some final words. Again, I'm Lisa Daniels. I'm 1/3 of this marvelous team. Truth and nothing but the truth. I am the founder of Lionheart Society, and really it is one of my love languages to keep couples married and families together, and it's truly an honor to once again be with y'all today.
Yeah, tell them how they can contact you.
Yeah, now you can find me on the internet, child. So you can find me on Instagram or Facebook at the Lionheart Society LLC. Also, I do have a website, thelionheartsociety.com, where all my services are listed. Love to have a conversation with anyone who, just trying to figure out life and win. Yeah, that part. Go ahead, Tobias.
You can, I am 𝗕𝗂𝗶𝗵𝗶. You can reach me on Facebook at Tobias Towers. I am nobody's favorite. And you can reach me. This is my little handle, that's all. And
like,
yeah, it's my little handle.
That's the Lord Jesus loved you. Right.
and my Instagram is 𝗕𝗂𝗶𝗵𝗶. So look forward to seeing you all. If we're going to have a conversation or a link up, it'll be fun.
Well, thank you so much. Again, I am Dr. Katina Fuller-Scott, would be what matters. And you can find me at www.kcfullerscott.com. And I love working with leaders, entrepreneurs, and organizations and helping you be the best of who you are and what you do. through coaching, speaking, and training. So definitely hook up with me. If you don't need us, refer us.
Okay.
Amen. 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 We will see you all, Lord's will, in March. God bless you. Be safe. And again, our prayers are going out to the families and the states that have been affected by the storm and the lack of leadership and accountability. But that's a whole nother conversation.
Those who need to call you, doctor.
Listen, they need me. Because I would have told them to prepare for that. Okay, but thank you so much. God bless you all. We love you. We'll see you next time.
All right, bye.
Bye-bye.